Hey everybody, Raul here for Bass Musician Magazine, and today we have the extraordinary honor of chatting with bassist, pianist, songwriter, producer, vocalist, recording engineer, and so much more, Sam DeRose Jr. Yay!
What an intro. Thank you. Thank you. Good to be here.
So, Sam, very excited in seeing some of your most recent work, videos, and things. We definitely want to talk about those, but we always like to go to the past. How did you get started in music and in particularly on bass?
See, I got started in music and bass through swimming. So I was a competitive swimmer and used to swim 3 hours before school, 3 hours after school. And that's pretty much all I did, swim, eat, and sleep. And when swimming, competitive swimming, it's the lonely sport. If you're in track or football or some of these other sports, you can always talk to somebody. But in swimming, you got your head in the water, so you got nothing. And so I used to, think about music. And as I was thinking about music, I always thought I was singing somebody else's songs. And I realized, no, I was writing my own because I couldn't remember, the radio songs, on the way to practice. So we always used to stop at the 7-Eleven. I used to have to eat before I'd go. I wouldn't make it through a practice. And there was a little note on the wall that said, "Hey, learn to play bass." And my mom was like, "Would you like to learn how to play bass?" And I started thinking about it. And I said, "Yeah." So I sold my go-kart and I bought an EBO bass short scale and this little Epiphone amp that used to feedback real good. I think it probably was a guitar amp. I didn't know the difference. And that's how I got started. My father was in show business. He owned some clubs in Philadelphia. I grew up in Kansas City. My mom was also an entertainer, so she had a jazz background. In Kansas City, there's this big institute called Charlie Parker Jazz Foundation. So she took me over there and called me out of school, and they had this big jam where all these musicians were flying in from all over. So you'd be in a room, and there'd be piano, bass, and drums, and maybe a sax player, and I'd fall asleep, and 4 hours later, it'd be a whole different band up, and
Oh,
and it
wow.
lasted for like 3 days. It was fantastic. So I came out of that. I knew exactly what I wanted to do, and so I started playing bass, and there you go, man. That's how we got into it. I took lessons at Charlie Parker Jazz Foundation, and then I ended up moving to UMKC, which is a big prominent college right there in Kansas City,
Hmm.
and studied double bass, upright bass. And there you go. Started playing in bands, and my life was ruined from then on. You know.
Nice, nice. Well, and with that, you're pretty much the kind of music that you're playing right now kind of is falls within rock, pop, R&B. It kind of touches bases on a lot of things. And I'm seeing that
Yeah.
it looks like you kind of gravitate towards almost like a trio format, you, drums, guitar, but again, you add in piano and a whole lot of other things. Tell us a little bit about your music and what you're doing.
It's like I call it a nouveau pop. So it's pop with other influences in, with bass as a solo instrument featured inside a 3.5 minute or a 3 minute pop song. So big fat harmonies and everything, and then in partially way through the song, instead of the guitar or keyboard or saxophone doing a solo, bass does a solo. So, in my formative years, I took, private instruction, and basically I took violin lessons, except I played electric bass and my teacher played violin. So I learned all these violin fingerings, which, violin is tuned in fifths. So, I had to transpose to fourths for bass
Hmm.
and start playing all these violin concertos. And then he would make me write them out. And, that's how I learned theory and learned all the modes and everything. So what happened is now when I go and try to solo, the jazz background is kind of was washed away, and it was kind of replaced by classical violin concertos. So within the song, it's like this melodic thing that happens, and I switch from a clean bass sound to kind of a dirty bass sound, and that's how we get that sound. Otherwise, I can't cut through all the guitars and synths and everything, which is in all the songs.
Indeed,
So yeah.
indeed. Well, and I was watching some of your videos, you've got some very creative. So you're hitting well beyond just the musical impact, but the visual appeal of it. There's a lot of very fascinating graphics and things that you're doing. Tell us a little bit about that process because it's pretty unique.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, I just felt like, just to sit and watch a band play, that's all good and everything, and get into the music. But I wanted to do something extra with the presentation of the songs. And so that's where that came from. So, the I like to keep it moving, keep the scenes moving, and effects in there. So, who doesn't want to see something get blown up?
Yeah.
Some of them we have lightning bolts coming, and just real high end, like going to the movies. You go, and I've got two daughters, and they're always wanting me to, whatever movie we're going to see, there's all these special effects and the green screen and all this cool stuff. And I'm like, well, I want some of that. I want to put that into some of the videos, and I think it's an audio experience, but also a visual experience too. I think it's important
Indeed.
for the way it works.
And I am finding, especially when you look at a lot of live shows nowadays, they have also I'll say traditionally, you were happy just seeing the band. That's all there was. There would be a band on a stage and that was all there was. But nowadays, more and more, you're seeing a lot more audio visual effects behind it. And most recently, we had the pleasure of going to the Sphere. I'm in Las Vegas. And so now you
Mhm.
have a 360-degree dome of visual going along with the musical part. And it goes
Yes.
well beyond. And so when I see your videos, I'm thinking, wow, these could do really well on a much bigger platform like this, where you've got kind of that omni reach kind of extent.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Right now, I've got a single on the charts called Sarah, and
Hmm.
I think we're at 13 on the top 40 and number 3 on the indie charts. But when I was over in England with Kenny, who's my manager, and we were recording at Abbey Road, and he was saying, we've got to do something special for this Sarah song. And I said, well, I was talking about the Sphere out in Las Vegas. Kenny used to watch these old musicals from back in the 30s and 40s, I guess, and it had Esther Williams, and they used to do you call them the water musicals is what I would
Yes.
call them, and they were fire in the water and everything. And I said, well, let's see if we can do like a Sphere kind of a stage, and let's flood the stage. And it goes, well, if we flood the stage, we got to have mermaids. I said, good, we'll put mermaids in there too. And that's how the Sarah video came about, was by doing something from the Sphere, and doing all I think they call them the aqua musicals. And I just remember watching them when I was a kid. They got the synchronized swimming going on, and so we put a whole bunch of that into the video too. I think at the end, we've got these water dancers that come up out of the water, and they're actually dancing as we're
Mm.
playing, and there's all this water happening, and so that's where that came from, and it came from talking about a Sphere show,
Very
and
cool. Very cool. Well, and of course,
yeah.
for all of us bass gear kind of folks, we can't help but notice you're surrounded by some lovely instruments. Tell us a little bit about how you're getting your sound and what you're playing on.
Back when I first started playing, I got a Rickenbacker bass, 4001. It's a 1977, and all the guys that saw it, they're going, "Oh man, really? That's so cool, man! Like Geddy Lee and Kubla Khan and all that." I'm like, "No, no, no, man! Like Paul McCartney and come together."
Yeah.
So one of my first band jams that I had, the two guitar players, they were taking turns doing solos. I'm like, well, man, I want to do a solo, and they said, well, great, do a solo. So I did a solo that nobody could hear because it was just, bass playing. And I said, man, this just won't do. In a Rickenbacker bass, you have this Rico sound. So there's two inputs on the 4001. So I sent away and I got a stereo cable and we got 2 amps. Now, with a Rickenbacker bass, when you're using that Rico sound, that's what it's called, a Rico sound. One input goes to the to 1 amp and another input goes to the other. And so it's kind of like a Les Paul. So when it was in the up position, it's just the neck pickup is playing. When it's all the way down, it's the bridge. In between, you have both that come on. And so one of the guitar players let me plug into his guitar amp, which is like a little Marshall half stack. And I said, well, I hate the way it sounds. It doesn't sound like a bass anymore, but it definitely cuts. But when you distort a bass, you lose all the bottom end. He goes, well, let's use the Rico sound when have it all the way up in the neck position, and when you want to do a solo, put it down in the middle position, and both amps will play. So you'll have the bottom end of one amp, kind of like Billy Sheehan does,
Mm-hmm.
and it's distorted sound here, and that should cut through everything, and it did. So from then on, that's what I would do in a band situation. So I ended up having a Marshall bass stack, a JCM 800, and then I'd have like a guitar stack, and that's the way I would do it. So anytime I wanted to do a solo, I just keep the bass sound on, and I would just click on the other stack. The only thing is, you walk into a gig and you got two Marshall stacks, and you're a bass player, and the sound guys automatically just hate you.
Yeah.
And you hear them talking. Guess who's not going to be in the mains tonight? I ended up getting, a line 6, and this line 6 X3 Pro. It's an older model, but it has two different amp settings in there, and you can actually have two different sounds of the amps, and you can have a left side and a right side. So that's what I started using, and I started using these little PA speakers that they don't look like they would do anything, but I've had them regutted, so it's got a 12-inch eminence and a 10-inch eminence, and it's got 3 tweeters on the top, and it just cuts through everything. It doesn't offend any of the sound guys and everything. And those tweeters, they're only good for about 10 feet, so it cuts through everything for me on stage. But by the time it reaches the sound guy, he doesn't get any of that. It's that little bleed in the mics, and that's how I came up with my sound. So I've got my main rig, which is really 2 Marshall stacks, and I use that in the studio. But when I go out and play, I've got these smaller little cabinets, and everything is all contained, everything. But it's the same principle.
Nice. Now, those basses behind you aren't Rickenbackers. Tell us about those.
Those were made by Les Godfrey from Godfrey Guitars. He had this bass that was called a Dragonetti. Well, it was 34-inch scale, and it's 2-octave neck. Well, I was playing all these concertos, and I'm like, man, if I could get this guy to make me a 3-octave neck and have it not look so whack, those hyperextended basses that I've ever seen, they kind of look a little strange. That's exactly what these are. So they're 30.5-inch necks, but they're 36 frets, except for the one over
Fretless.
here with fretless. But same kind of a deal there. And you can tell that they're short scale because if you look at the bridges are in the center of the body, and most basses they'll be down at the end. So there you go. So short scale, hyperextended, 36 frets, Bartolini active pickups, brass nuts, Kahler bass trems. Man, we're good to go. Spurzell locking tuners, so they never go out of tune. There we go. When I'm playing regular bass, it's just a nice, real punchy, round sound. When it's time to kick into a lead, I kick into the lead, and it just adds a little distortion there, and just cuts through everything, and off to the races.
And do you have a preference in strings particularly?
Yeah, GHS Boomer Lights. I've been using them since I was 14. That's my thing. So I think they go 95 to 40, something like that.
Well, and when you
And
find something that works like that, why change it, right? I mean,
well, I try to go heavier, but the bones in my left hand, they were saying no way. I
no.
tried to do a 110 on the low E string. But when I'm in the studio, most times I'll tune these basses down to a B, so to be BEAD,
Mm-hmm.
and when you drop tune a short scale bass, there's just this magic bottom end thing that comes in it. And it has a kind of a 60s vibe, but you still get a little ting, because of the Bartolinis. And man, I just fell right into it, found my sound, and Les Godfrey is an amazing guy. Check out Les Godfrey Guitars. He's got some of the most crazy basses I've ever seen, and it's just a really eclectic guy. He nailed it on mine. I ended up getting three from him, and we're going to get one more. And there you go. I got my thing. It's basically I had him take the specs off my Rickenbacker bass, and so it's a Rickenbacker bass feel on the neck.
Very nice. Well, they do have quite the look as we're looking at them here. So they're very unique. So as we look ahead, what's in the works for the future? What plans do you have? What are you working on?
Okay, so there'll be more radio ready songs. I want to stay and do. We're going to do two more EPs, so six more songs during the end of this year. And with each song, there'll be a video that comes with it. So six songs, six more videos. And then from there, it'll be ready to play out. So I want to do a lot of these festivals and stuff like that over in Europe because, Kenny has got the line in for that.
Mhm.
And I'm going to continue with this radio play, and we'll put probably another single out. But right now I think we're 14 weeks on the charts now, and hopefully they'll keep me there as long as possible.
Very nice.
When they I said, look, I don't care about being number one, but get me inside the 20 and leave me there. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful.
Nice. Well,
Yeah.
and if people want to know what you're up to, because it sounds like there's a lot of things happening, where's the best place for them to look? Website, social?
I would say social media and also website. So we're on TikTok. We're also on Twitter, but not so much Twitter. A little bit. Facebook and Instagram. Instagram and Twitter are my main two. Plus, if you go to the website, there's always stuff going on over there, especially in the news section. It will say exactly what's up and what we're doing. Right now, I've got all the charts posted there, and which is really great. It's my TuneCore is just blowing up from that. So I'm starting to see a lot of activity, and that feels really good.
Nice, nice. Well, and so people know, just to be sure, it is samderosejr.com, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, sir. SamDeRoseJr.com. TikTok at Sam DeRose Jr. Everything is Sam DeRose Jr. And very, very easy to.
Perfect, perfect. Well, Sam, it's been so great having a chance to chat with you. Thank you for sharing so much of this interesting information, beautiful instruments. We're looking forward to upcoming music. Folks, you've seen him here on Bass Musician Magazine, Sam DeRose Jr. Yay!